Are you experiencing some challenges in your life at the moment? Who isn't? It may be with your finances, your property investment, your business, your relationships, maybe it's your health. Well, my guest today, Dr. Arun Dhir, wants you to know that your mess has a message for you. In fact, that's the name of his book. Now, you probably subscribe to my podcast to learn about property, about finance, success, or wealth. But true wealth is much more than how many properties you own or how much money you've got in the bank. So while today we won't be specifically talking about real estate, even though my guest is a very successful property investor, we will talk about ways of making you wealthier in all areas of your life. So welcome to today's show.
Welcome to the Michael Yardney podcast, where twice each week you will learn a number of new ideas regarding success, property investment, and money in around 30 minutes. Our show is brought to you by Metropole, who specialise in helping you grow, protect, and pass on your wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. Now, here's your host, Michael Yardney, Australia's authority in wealth creation through property, who has been voted one of Australia's top 50 most influential thought leaders.
Regardless of who we are or where we live, we're likely to experience significant adverse events during our lifetime. In fact, the last 2 years have reminded us how quickly things can change. Now, I know I've had my share of, let's call them adverse events. Some are out of my control, and unfortunately others were self-inflicted. So I think it's important to realise how these can have a potential effect of totally changing the trajectory of your life. So I was fascinated to recently read a book called Your Mess Has a Message by Dr. Arun Dhir. Now, that's an interesting title, isn't it? Your Mess Has a Message. Now, Dr. Dhir is a Melbourne-based gastrointestinal and bariatric surgeon, and while he's got a busy medical practice, and interestingly, he's a captain in the Army Reserves, he also happens to be a client of Metropole, but he's also a very successful property investor. But today, I don't really want to talk about property. Instead, I'd like to talk about how to find meaning and fulfillment in the chaos and confusion of life that we're all working our way through. Now, that's going to make you wealthier, isn't it? So, with that introduction, welcome, Arun.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's an honor to be on your podcast.
Now, Dr. Dhir, you're clearly a very busy man. Apart from being a bariatric surgeon, I know that you're in the Reserve, Army Reserves, and you're a captain, and you're also a yoga and meditation teacher. And I read your works, and I see you've got a vision to bridge the gap between Eastern healing and the science of Western medicine through education and research. But with a classic medical training, how did you even get interested in Eastern medicine?
Yeah, great question, Michael. And I want to thank you and your audience and for the work that you are doing in bringing this education through your podcast to the world. I've been, an admirer of your work for a very long time and read your books and, of course, listened to the podcast. Clearly, there's a wealth of information that you share, and I love the mindset pieces. Now, talking a little bit about the specific question you've asked for me, that as a busy surgeon myself, what was it that caused me to start to delve into this space? See, originally I'm from India, and growing up in the Indian culture, meditation or Ayurveda and yoga are kind of like a part of the culture. But when you see things so often around you, you don't pay any attention to it because you become numb to it. When I came to Australia about 17 years ago, and I'd had good training, I trained in the UK and the US, and then I came here and I started setting up my practice and started seeing patients, I realized we are in an avalanche of lifestyle diseases. Things like obesity, diabetes, fatty liver, and sleep apnea, which so many of us men don't even know. And what it is doing is, it is affecting one key attribute in our personality that affects our ability to create true fulfillment, wealth, and prosperity in our life. And this is going to be very pertinent to your audience because I know your audience is about investing and getting returns and all of that. But there is that one quality that is called clarity. Clarity, if it is not there, I tell you, you can be confused. How do you get clarity? I know a lot of people go into exercises around goal sort of setting, time planning. There are so many strategies, and I've attended lots of those courses by Brian Tracy, Bob Proctor, and everybody. But I feel the real guidance comes from within you. And your gut is the seat of your intuition. Now, I was taught in Western medicine, and I've operated on the gut. I've stitched the gut. I have divided it. I have researched it. And I was never taught that the gut is the seat of your intuition. I was just taught gut is an organ where you put food in and you produce poop. That's it. So
yes.
It is the Western medicine taught me how to heal that. But the real thing was the science of meditation, yoga, eating healthy, diet and lifestyle, which allowed that bridge, that allowed me to understand, and I can bring it in an evidence-based manner to my patients.
Now, before too many people who are listening to this think, what's Michael on about? Who's he speaking to today? We are going to get into some hard evidence and ways of improving your life. But I like the fact that you're open-minded, and I think our audience should also be, that there's more than one way to achieve things, and that real wealth isn't how many properties you've got or how big your share portfolio is, but it's what you're left with after they take all that away. And your health is a critical part of it. Boy, have the last couple of years taught us that, haven't they? So, Arun, you've had 3 books published, but today I want to talk about your latest one, Your Mess Has a Message. What made you write a book about the challenges that life throws at us?
I think it was, to summarize, Michael, it was a combination of a personal chaos that I found myself in. Besides that, with COVID, a lot of the privileges were taken away. Like, as you would have heard, that being in Melbourne, we had the largest number of lockdowns in the world, like 6 lockdowns in a row. And every time there was a lockdown, the first thing they would stop is elective surgery. And
wow, that would have messed up your practice,
well,
wouldn't it?
Absolutely. I had staff who were looking forward to, yes, we had the job seeker in the beginning, but then those sort of, perks were taken away as well. And I was more worried for the people who were relying on me rather than anything else. So the key thing was that I was thrown in a deep state that I had to ask myself this question: what is the meaning of all of this? And the one book that came to mind that I really delved was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, who was a Jewish psychiatrist who was put through, a lot of problems through the concentration camp. But in answer to your question, I thought the best way to be able to get out of this is to try and find a way to serve others.
So that's a lovely thought. But there's so many self-help books out there, and there are the podcasts and the videos and the courses. Why do you think yours is different?
Exactly. And that is such a very pertinent question, Michael. The thing is that, people are seeking answers, something that is really authentic and that they can relate to. And COVID has brought this to the facts. It has brought it to this realization that, we are not immune to all these challenges. In fact, research shows that an average adult will experience 3 major adversities in their life and about 7 to 9 minor adversities in their life. Now, as they say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And that was something that I feel was a big statement for me when I was going through my own personal mess. Why this book is different? Well, it has come firstly from a medical practitioner who is bringing the science of health and well-being and how it relates to your ability to create wealth in your life and fulfillment in other areas. I talk about 7 areas of a fulfilled life, not just 1 or 2, but 7 areas. Now, I call this a ripple effect. Just to quickly enumerate, the 7 areas are starting from your physical health, then your mental health, then your relationships, then your work, then your financial health, then your spiritual health, and last is your ability to contribute, to make a contribution to someone else's life. Now, if I
could interrupt for a second,
Sure.
That's fascinating because You know that once a year we run wealth retreats, and we have a small group of already very successful people there. And outsiders would look at that and say, what are these wealthy people doing there to become even more wealthy? They're greedy. But in fact, they are the things we talk about at wealth retreats. So while we do talk about property and we do talk about tax and we do talk about business, we also talk about contribution and relationships and family and recreation, because in fact, if you're too focused on one thing, others tend to fall by the wayside and get hurt, don't they?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I think it starts with your health, your physical health.
Of course you would say that.
Yeah. But you see, the thing is, Michael, if you ask a person who's lying in a hospital bed, and I work in hospitals, ask them, what would they want? And their want would be that I want to be out and free. I want my independence. So it starts, in fact, Thomas Carlyle has very beautifully said that he who has health has got hope. And imagine how you would be if anybody was hopeless. That in medical terms is called depression. So that's where I feel it starts with hope, and I've heard you say many times in your podcast, it is the perspective that you take about a particular time in the market to actually whether to buy or not. I've heard you say so many times, when do you buy? It's when you are ready. So that's my viewpoint about it.
Now, we're going to get into a bit of detail in a moment, because I want to talk about if you've got a message for people who've got a mess financially, but is there an overarching message that you'd like to convey to readers of your book?
Yes, I think particularly from an investment perspective, when people talk about your net worth, people talk about, what is your sort of ability to do things from a financial perspective. What I've found is your net worth is a reflection of your self-worth. Now, that is a packed statement. Let me unpack it for you. The key thing is that if you don't have respect for yourself, for what you do, or if you're carrying emotions that are depressing you, that are negative in nature, that are not uplifting you, it will somehow or the other erode the energy, and it will either set seeds of what we call as dis-ease. And that is what you will go to a medical doctor and to people to find a diagnosis, and probably rely more on pills and procedures for treatment rather than actually understanding that it is the seeds of these negative emotions which are leading to the real problem.
Okay, so let's get into a bit of detail. I know you're a successful property investor. What advice would you have for people whose money is in a mess, which is one of the 7 sections of your book?
Exactly. So I think I want to honestly say I'm not a financial advisor, clearly. But I think
but you've actually achieved financial wealth. So I think it's really important. The reason I mentioned that is because it's important who you listen to, because there's a lot of theorists out there, and it's very nice. They've got the best intentions. Everyone's able to give you, they've got opinions, but that doesn't mean you should listen to their advice. But somebody who has actually achieved what a lot would like to achieve, and without going into detail, I know you've got a very substantial property portfolio. Now, some would say, hey, that's easy for him. He's got a big income. I see a lot of medical practitioners and other people who've got big incomes who actually haven't managed to save and then invest it correctly. So I think you do have a right to tell people, if they've got financial concerns, how to clear up their mess, or at least what message the mess is telling them.
Yeah. Well, Michael, I think the first thing that you have yourself answered that question, and I so resonate with, and I talk about this in my courses and to my patients, is who do you listen to? All right, that's the first thing. And I have got 3 specific criteria of who do I listen to. Number 1 is they should have what I want. If I am an unhealthy person who's overweight and smoking, and I'm telling my patients to not smoke, well, that is a complete hypocrisy. So that's number 1. Mm-hmm. They should have what I want. Secondly,
You shouldn't listen to anybody or take advice from anybody whose shoes you wouldn't be able to prepare to swap to.
spot on, spot on.
Yeah.
The second thing that I say to my patients is, or to anybody, is that they need to be authentic. That means they should not have a hidden selfish agenda behind it to try and sell you something. Now, I really admire you for that, and that's why I really resonated with your organization. You have got no properties to sell, which is amazing, because there are so many other people who are educating in your space who try and sell you stuff and they suddenly take it out of their pocket or something on those lines. And the third and the most important thing is they need to be able to communicate effectively, because I think communication is the way how we understand each other. And if we are not able to do that, you may be the best person in your space, but if you are not able to communicate, you cannot connect. So that is the first thing, Michael, that I would say to anybody who finds themselves in like a financial mess is find out who do you listen to. These times, as you and I know, are uncertain times. There is talks about recession, talks about inflation, talks about cost of living and all of that. Should you invest? Should you not invest? But here is the other thing, when you start filling yourself up with good quality information, whether it is from reading books or podcasts, and very importantly, you start tapping into your own inner guidance mechanism. That's where I see the power of meditation, power of affirmation. In the morning, there is a book that I always listen to. I've done that for many years now, and that is called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. I re-listen to the whole book again and again and again. It's an audio recording, audio book of about 3 to 4 hours. And I tell you, that primes my mind. Priming is the key thing that allows you to make more sensible decisions.
Okay, so now that you've explained, I guess, the big picture, and I fully agree with you, every morning I don't spend as much time as you on setting the scene, but I personally think about what 3 things am I grateful for, because I want to start the day grateful, and I'm not allowed to choose the things I've chosen earlier in the week. Otherwise, that would be cheating, and that makes it easy. So I also finish the day with the highlights of my day and the good things. And, it's not about money. It's often about family, about grandchildren, about experiences that's made my day special. So I resonate with what you're saying. But what about some practical things? If my money's in a mess, as is one of the chapters in your book, what is it that people should be asking themselves?
Great. So, Michael, in the book, I talk about these 7 key wealth questions. And the answers to these questions can be so profound that they can bring up the answers that one is looking for. They just have to be answered in a genuine way. And I highly recommend that people have a pen and paper in their hands and a bit of a quiet space. I recommend a journal. I recommend a diary that you can use and maybe answer these questions over a period of time so that it allows you clarity. The first question is, why do you need the money? All right. Is it the money that you're chasing, or is it the experience that it brings with it, the sense of security or whatever you may be looking for? The second question is, have you defined what is your need income? See, whenever we talk about planning anything, we talk about what are my needs? What is it that I'm aiming for? So that is what allows you to start to work with a figure. In fact, my need income is broken down into a yearly, a monthly, and a weekly figure. So I have that as to where that figure, what that number is looking like. Even a vague plan is better than no plan. Okay. Question number 3 is, see, there are no free lunches in this planet. What service do you plan to deliver to earn that wealth? Now, I call it wealth, not money, because again, we're chasing an experience, not just money. And that is where I urge people to think of their sweet spot. The sweet spot is about how to find your service. What is it? And it's made of these 3 things. Number 1 is, what is your passion? What are you really passionate about? What is your skill That means you have one skill. It could be speaking, it could be dancing, it could be web designing, whatever it is. And what is the monetary gain you are wanting to get out of it? If you draw these 3 circles and write down what is your passion, what is your skill, and what is your driver, which is the money, what is the monetary gain that you're aiming to seek out of it, you will find the sweet spot, which is the intersection of these 3 circles. And that's where you need to be. The 4th question is that of, have you got a hunger to learn about wealth? See, you and I just spoke about that learning. If you want to earn more, you got to learn more. Leaders are...
And unfortunately, that's not being taught in institutions or at schools. And most of what we learn in the early years is coming from our models, our mentors, who happen to be our parents. And for a lot of Australians, parents didn't speak about wealth. So it's not what they told you also, it's what they didn't tell you. It's things you heard, things you experienced, things you saw. And so it's never too late, though, to relearn these lessons, is it?
Absolutely. Learning can start any time. You just have to be ready to receive it. And that's where there are so many. We live in an information age. And I think what is more important now is the pertinent question, who do you listen to? Again, it is discernment. Moving on, Michael, question number 5 is, how do you plan to set yourself up? And this is really important because I was doing things to set myself up on my own. I would say, I can save some money. I don't need to hire the services of a buyer's agent or someone like, a financial advisor. I can do it all myself. But then I started finding that I'm stressing about things that I'm not an expert in. So always seek the advice of a professional. You are leap years ahead than others rather than doing it all yourself.
What you're doing is you're investing in yourself. You're investing in your future, which is in my mind is smart because you're going to be living there for a long time. The problem, of course, again, keeps coming back to the same thing, interestingly, Arun, is who do you listen to? Because there are so many young people out there giving advice and they're well-meaning, but they haven't been around the block often enough. And in the very challenging times we've experiencing currently, and we're going to continue to experience over the next couple of years, it's going to be important to get the right team, and it is a team around you. So property investment, as you know, you've heard me say often, isn't a process. Buying a property is not a plan and not a strategy. The end property you buy is going to be the physical manifestation of a whole lot of decisions you've got to make and make them in the right order. And it's impertinent to think that you can do it yourself are better than somebody or a team who's been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years. So you're right. It all starts with a plan.
Absolutely. And which is what brings to the 6th question, Michael, which is, how do you feed your mindset with discipline? See, if you don't have discipline, you're just going to be bouncing off the walls. Somebody will say, oh, it's a bad time, it's crisis, recession is coming, and you would just quietly hide up and curl up. So this is where fear, the only way to overcome fear is through knowledge.
Well, if you've got a plan, you know what you have to do. And even though you will go off track a bit, because we all do, and we're human, so it's hard not to get sucked into some of those negative media messages, even though it's a shame when that happens, at least you're got a plan to stick to, and you're less likely to be taken off track by the negative media messages.
Exactly, Michael. One of my mentors said that, the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is that both experience negative emotions of fear and depression and anxiety. It's just that successful people still choose to take action, because action is what allows you to make that judgment as to how you can course correct, which is the 7th question. How can you course correct? Course correct means you have gone off tangent. You're going off because of whatever reasons, external circumstances, internal circumstances. The key points are, have a mechanism to check your trajectory. That means, where are you going? Have an accountability buddy. Even having someone like, I speak to Brett in your team almost, I don't speak him very often, but if I have a question, I will reach out to Brett. So you have somebody who holds you accountable. And this is where adjust adapt, and sometimes you have to accept it, that there is a loss. Let's accept it and let's move on. So those are my 7 big ticket sort of wealth questions, I call them, and they are available on sort of my website as well for a free download.
Well, I'm going to leave a link in the show notes to the website because people listening to this probably won't be able to take it down right now. So it'll definitely be in the show notes how to get that. And it's clearly in your book, Your Mess Has a Message as well. Now, we're living in challenging times. I don't think I've seen people as stressed as they are. In all my many years, is it post-COVID fatigue syndrome? Is it the negative messages in the media? What are your suggestions for people who's currently, let's use your expression, whose mind is in a mess?
Absolutely. And I think this is a more pertinent question, Michael, for the broader community, I should say. And I see a lot of this when I'm seeing patients and all of that. See, research has shown that there are 3 key risk factors of dying from COVID. I'm talking about death, something really, it's a worst case scenario. 3 key risk factors are, number 1 is age. If you're above 75 years of age, you've got a higher risk of dying from COVID. Number 2, if your BMI, which is body mass index, is more than 35, you have a higher risk of dying from COVID. But guess what the third factor is? The third factor is fear. If somebody's got fear, anxiety, depression, what you're doing is you are actually negatively affecting your immune system. There is a whole branch of science which is called psychoneuroimmunology. What that means is psycho means thoughts, neuro means brain, and immunology means the immune system. Now, your immune system is not just used to fight viruses and bacteria. Your immune system also kills cancer cells in your body, which every healthy human being generates. But because of the healthy immune system, those cancer cells get eaten up or consumed. But if that mechanism is damaged or it is under so much sort of, fatigue because of overuse of this response called the stress response, which is all these emotions that I've just mentioned to you, fear, depression, anxiety, panic, uncertainty, hopelessness, even anger and blame. These are emotions that allow this system to slowly get eroded. And that is what sets inflammation in the body. And all these things that I just mentioned to you, which is obesity, fatty liver, diabetes, the root is inflammation. And that is what I'm seeing, which is causing the issues when, as you talk about, people are stressed, people are worried, because this inflammatory response is heightened in their systems.
Now, unfortunately, it's true that there are a lot of issues and a lot of problems out there, but some people see the glass half full and the others see the glass half empty. We're looking through filters, we're looking through tinted glasses, and we don't even realize we're wearing them, do we?
Absolutely. And that's what I say, Michael. I have had the opportunity to see many patients during these last 3 or 4 years, and not everybody has gone down during COVID times. I've had patients who actually hired out equipment from the gym, put it in their garage, and they became fitter. They became clearer. Their businesses boomed because they adapted. So not everybody went down during COVID times. A lot of us think, it's doom and gloom for everyone. It is the same as that it was for Great Depression ages ago in 1930s and 40s after the World War. Not everybody went down in the Great Depression.
The outside world and your results really are a reflection of your inside world. So your thoughts lead to your feelings lead to your actions lead to your results. So how does one retrain oneself not to have these negative thoughts? How, when the media keeps bombarding us with these sort of messages about a recession. Now, the health fears are over, but there's wars overseas, there's political issues, there's financial issues.
Absolutely.
How do you help people whose mind's in a mess?
And I would say 3 things. Just 3 things that people need to do, because I always say, keep it simple. Things can change, but here is what you do. Number 1, we have to have a routine. Now, if you don't have a routine, and I talk about the morning routine because I'm a morning person. I get up at 4:30 in the morning, and at 5 o'clock, 5 to 6 is my time. Everybody in the house knows that they don't disturb me. It's a quiet time. I know, like it sounds crazy. I am a little bit crazy. I don't have a huge social circle, Michael, because I love the company of the few friends that I hang out with. And more importantly, I love my own company. I'm not saying that in an arrogant way.
No. I know you're not an arrogant person by any means. I know that.
But I mean, I'm mindful. So first thing that I would say is form a routine for yourself. I follow the 20-20-20 rule that I borrowed from Robin Sharma. 20 minutes of meditation, 20 minutes of exercise, and 20 minutes of journaling in the morning. So that is my 20-20-20 rule that I follow in the morning. So no matter what is happening in the world, I try and stick to it. Now, if I'm running late for whatever reason, I shrink it down in proportion. So that's the first thing that I would say to people. Secondly, watch what you're eating, because what you eat becomes a part of you. This is a part of your not just physical fitness, but also mental clarity. If you are eating, there is a video that I made on my YouTube video, and the title is Your Food Affects Your Mood. There is science behind it. There is science.
I love the way you have that alliteration. That's fantastic. Your mess has a message. Your food affects your mood. Great work.
It absolutely does, So I've tried to package it in a way that a common person starts to understand that there is a link between, if I want to start creating more clarity in my life, let me start eating more live foods rather than dead foods. Now, dead foods are really foods that are coming from packets. And that's the key thing, So that's the second thing. And the third thing that I would say is, which is very important, is, and you and I have already spoken about it, make a ritual of reading something. I love physical books. I like to hold a paper in my hand and underline it and make notes. I don't somehow like ebooks as much.
Well, my good friend Tom Corley, who studied the wealthy people, and we've written about it in our book, Rich Habits, Poor Habits, interestingly found independently that many of the things that you're talking about are the success habits that wealthy people do. And he checked what wealthy people do and what the average American did. And interestingly, they do take time to themselves. They do have that hour in the morning. They do journal. They do read, but they read to learn, not for entertainment. Entertainment's another thing. And they're disciplined. And so therefore, I think the message I'd like to give people is that if you're having challenges in your life in various ways, there is help out there. And I'm also going to leave a link in the show notes, because this may have brought out some concerns that people have got. And we're very much into this, are you okay at the moment? And I'm not downplaying by saying that. I think if this has brought up any concerns to anybody, there are people out there to help, including just speak to somebody, shouldn't they, Arun?
Absolutely, and I think we men are quite guilty of it, Michael. When we go through some negative sort of events in our life, we tend to bottle it up.
Yes.
We just tend to, we think the men can't cry, men can't share, because we will be seen as weak and meek. And actually that is not true at all,
No, it's a sign of strength asking for help. So I'm going to leave a link in the show notes to your various websites, including how to get the book, Your Mess Has a Message. But I'd like to finish off on one other thing. I know there's a program that's very near and dear to you, where you're wanting to help other people holistically look after their health. So I'm happy for you to give a quick shameless plug about what your big project is.
Yeah, Michael, this is a vision that came so clear to me in one of my meditations when I was, homebound during COVID times. Work was uncertain. There was a lot of uncertainty. And this was the vision of why I was planted on this planet. And my vision is to set up a center of health and well-being. I call it the Healed Center, where we bring the science of modern medicine and the art of traditional healing together under one roof to allow people to understand how they can create their own healing. Now, this is not a center where we are going to be doing surgery and all of that. That can already be achieved and attained in hospitals that we are very fortunate to have in our state. But this is where we understand the role that emotions play in creating disease. It's not just about having a massage and feeling relaxed after it. We are actually going to be measuring people. We're going to be doing blood tests, skin temperature monitoring, heart rate variability. There are significant assessments now that we can do. And this data allows individuals to course correct themselves. See, as they say, what gets measured gets managed. And that's what we're going to be doing.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and I think it's a great vision. So I'll be leaving links in the show notes to this. One last thing, if I could. What are you doing in the Army? How are you involved in that?
Yeah. Well, Michael, I am the son of an army officer. My dad was in the Indian Army, and, I have it in my DNA. But not just that, I always had this desire to give back in some shape or form to this beautiful country that we live in. And that is the seed that was planted ages ago. I just had a chance to sort of, actually take action on it because, you turn 50 and you realize, what, life is too short. Where is your bucket list, So this was one of the things on the bucket list, to be in the uniform and serve this beautiful country that I live in. And I've been so fortunate to have been introduced to so many amazing people like yourself who are helping me achieve this vision of being of service. So that is the basis behind it.
Well, thank you for your service. I think in many ways Australians don't appreciate what our armed forces do. Hopefully you're not going to have to do a lot, but they're there to protect us if we need it. And there's been lots of times that the armed forces have helped over the last little while with our various internal disasters. It's been a real pleasure having a chat with you. I'm going to leave links in the show notes because I'm sure a lot of people would want to find out more about your books and your ideas and your YouTube channel. So, and I know in between all these things, you and I are going to catch up anyway about your property portfolio. So thank you very much for your time, Dr. Arun Dhir.
Michael, it's been a delight. I'm truly grateful from the bottom of my heart for this opportunity. But more importantly, I commend you for the amazing work that you're doing in educating people, not just about property, but actually in a very holistic way. So I commend you for that.
Thank you. In a moment, I'm going to share my popular mindset message with you. But before I do, I just want to talk a little bit about the uncertain times we're living in at the moment. There's social, economic, political unrest, uncertainty, even health uncertainty. The problems don't seem to be going away. And as a property investor or somebody who's keen to secure your financial prosperity, at the moment, a lot of people are just getting nervous, but you can't afford to play below your potential. You see, as I can see it at the moment, there are three choices on how you can handle the interesting times, because we know there's currently a window of opportunity and eventually this will turn. But you can either play not to lose, shrinking away from the opportunities, and you just fall a bit short of your potential. You just hope to survive and eventually life will move on. You can play to play. You can hold on to the status quo and just let opportunities slip you by. Or you can play to win. The ones who play to win are those investors who recognise that times like this offer tremendous opportunities if you can have a long-term view when the majority of Australians are just worried about surviving the short term. Now, I don't know your personal circumstances, but I know I'm in the third group, as are many of our clients at Metropole. So this is my invitation to you to have an obligation-free complimentary clarity consultation with one of our property strategists at Metropole. This is going to give you some clarity on what's possible for you and what's ahead, and see if you can fall into that third group, the ones who are going to play to win. You see, my team and I are keen to share frameworks with you that I've fine-tuned over the past 5 decades and strategies that we've been helping thousands of clients with over the last 20 years now. I don't want you to regret not meeting with us and having missed out on an opportunity. So why not go to metropole.com.au. You'll see we have no properties for sale, but organise a time to have a chat with one of my team. I'll be leaving you a link in the show notes as well. Now's a great time to spend your time wisely.
Now here's Michael's mindset message. Remember, a change in your thinking will lead to a change in your life.
My mindset message today is that you're going to have to walk through hot sands in order to find the ideal spot on your beach. Now, if you're a beach person, you're going to understand what I mean. On many beaches, in order to get that nice, comfortable spot, you're going to have to trudge through a seamless, endless amount of scorching hot sand. You're going to be carrying an umbrella, some chairs, an esky, many other things as well, and dragging the kids behind you. And if you don't properly prepare yourself for the pain by wearing thongs, sneakers or shoes, the journey through the hot sand towards the cool ocean will be almost unbearable. Now, I remember many years ago, Pam and I were doing a tour of Israel and we were going to go to the Dead Sea. You know, that's where the water is so salty that you can't sink, you just float. It keeps you afloat the whole time. So we went on a bus tour there and we got onto what we thought was a beach. It was going to be a beach, but it wasn't. Rocks, pebbles, it was an uncomfortable walk. And boy, was it quite some distance to the ocean. And as I was walking along, my feet were in pain. And I couldn't be bothered. I didn't want to go further. And Pam said, no, you've come all this way. You can't not go there. She encouraged me. And it was worth it. It was an amazing experience. I guess what I'm telling you is your success journey is going to be a lot like that journey towards the ocean. You're going to have to endure pain, the pain of your own success journey in order to realize success. I don't know what that pain is going to be, but it will be obstacles, pitfalls, mistakes, failures, rejection, indifference by people that were important to you. It's going to be a roller coaster of emotions that make the journey, at times, almost unbearable. Most, unfortunately, never make it to their spot on the beach. They underestimate the pain of the journey, and as a result, the scorching hot sand is simply too hot for them to handle, or those rocky, pebbly beaches are just too painful under their feet. So they quit. And you know what? Often it's just before they succeed. But the few who do succeed are able to do so when the pain that does come to them, they can endure it because they're prepared for it. The key to realizing success is not tolerating the pain of the journey towards success, but preparing for it. You've got to expect obstacles to be in your way. You better be prepared for the pitfalls. You've got to expect that there's going to be mistakes, there's going to be failures. And above all, you've got to understand that the journey is going to be long and painful. So when those who succeed encounter the hot sands along the path, they're ready for it. They bring their sneakers or their thongs, or if you're in New Zealand, their flip-flops with them. Being prepared for the pain enables you to focus on one thing and one thing only: getting to the ocean, getting to your spot on the beach. Thank you for spending this time with me today, and if you got some benefit from today's show and you know somebody else who'd also benefit from it, please tell them about it. Help me in my quest to make more people financially literate. Of course, you can always tell the world about it by leaving a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. All podcasts have a little share button, so please tell somebody about it. Now, I'll be back again real soon, but you can catch me in between these shows on social media. Just look for Michael Yardney. Oh, I've got a bonus for you, a way of saying thank you for subscribing to this podcast. Just go to podcastbonus.com.au. There'll be a link in the show notes, podcastbonus.com.au, and I've got a heap of ebooks and reports for you. Now, if you want to catch up between these shows, there's another way. You can also join my private Facebook group. Go to Facebook and look for the Property Update Facebook group, where I leave some tips every day. I'll be back again real soon. In the meantime, have a great week. Make it a great week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Michael Yardney podcast, which was brought to you by Metropole, who help their clients grow, protect, and pass on their wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. If you like what you heard and don't already subscribe, you'll find us on iTunes or on your favorite Android app as the Michael Yardney podcast. Watch out for our next show, which comes to you twice a week, and you'll learn some new ideas about property investment, success, and money in around 30 minutes. To get more of Michael's thoughts, go across to www.propertyupdate.com.au and sign up for his daily morning briefing, and you'll hear from not only Michael but a group of leading property success and money experts. And just a reminder that the information you heard in this show today is general educational advice and not specific investment advice, as we don't know your personal circumstances. If you're looking for specific advice, why not ask the team at Metropole to help you?